So can you tell me a little bit about yourself, your name, and where you live and work?
My name is Kayleigh Pleas. I live and work in New York City.
And what do you do?
I do wellness coaching. I teach 2 forms of exercise, yoga, and then a class called Core Fusion, which is taking a lot of movements from ballet and physical therapy and fatiguing a muscle group and then immediately stretching that muscle group right after.
Right. And coaching? How's that part of your job?
So I teach for 2 studios, and then coaching, I have my own business. And I call it nutrition and wellness coaching. I have a nutrition certification as well.
Right.
And I have about 20 clients right now.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And I see clients once every 2 weeks, but I would say about 50% decide that they'd like to be seen once a week,
Right.
just to keep momentum.
Right. And what's your background for doing that?
My background, I was a psychology undergraduate and taught a variety of different kinds of exercise, and then upon graduating I did a nutrition certification, a wellness coaching certification, and then a plethora of sort of mind-body exercise modality certifications, and then started MAP in September.
Right. And so how long would you say you've been combining positive psychology and coaching?
The thing that's tricky about that question is in the coaching certification that I did, they included a lot of positive psychology in it.
Right.
There was, we talked about positivity and the 3-to-1 ratio, and then also something I have, appreciative inquiry. I know it's not from positive psychology, but it is so focused on the positive and building on strengths that I don't know if you would consider that positive psychology, but it is. So, and that being really a foundational component too.
Right. And so the people you typically coach, like, who are they?
They're typically very busy New York professionals who haven't been taking very good care of themselves, whether it's through nutrition or they're really suffering from stress or they haven't made time to exercise, and they're looking for a way to change a lifestyle that's been really well worn and they've become accustomed to, and also accountability is a major part of that.
Right.
And then a lot of it is come from word of mouth. So one friend noticing a change in another friend and saying, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I'm saying, "Oh, I'm meeting with this wellness coach." So.
And accountability. Can you say something more about that?
Yeah, accountability. When between each session, we set really specific, concrete goals, and meeting with me every once a week or every 2 weeks keeps people accountable to. Really, it's a value change, because if your values are work all the time, saying, "Oh wait, actually I want to take really good care of myself, I value peace of mind, I value time with family," it's not easy to change your value system.
No.
So accountability in both kind of really specific goal setting, but also accountability in terms of I'm choosing to be in the world a different way.
Right. And do you hold them accountable when they come here?
Do I hold them accountable, meaning...
So you're tough on them if they don't meet their goals?
Oh, no, absolutely not. No.
So what do you do?
Most of what I do is provide a really open space where I'm role modeling. Right. And a huge part of my coaching is mindfulness. So just looking at, okay, this is an opportunity to learn and to grow. And the fact that you showed up here to our coaching session, you still want to grow and you want to learn. And let's look at it. What can we learn?
Right. And so what are the issues that they normally would show up with, that the issues that they would present?
Most of them will show up with either I want to lose weight, or I'm having trouble sleeping, I can't sleep, or I have digestive disorders and I know it's stress related, and wanting to make some lifestyle changes to improve their wellness.
Right, so that's what they say when they...
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what does a coaching engagement look like? What happens before you meet them, when you meet them?
Mm-hmm. So before I meet the client, I have them fill out, I call it a health history questionnaire, and it looks at everything from what are your main concerns right now? That could be physically, mentally, emotionally. But then also I have them detail, what does a day in the life of you look like? What are you eating?
Yeah.
How are you sleeping? And then what do you do for fun? What are your major stressors? And in 6 months, I typically set up a coaching session or coaching engagement to be 6 months. What would you like to be different at the end of 6 months?
So do they commit to 6 months?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And many of them continue after, because I think when somebody has not been living mindfully and then they experience a mindful way of living, it's just so exhilarating that they want to continue on that track, and also know that it's not easy to stay mindful in New York City.
No.
When you're working all the time. So.
Right. So that's before you meet them. But what happens then when you meet them the first time?
So the first few sessions, I have kind of a typical protocol that I go through, and that typically only lasts for about 2 or 3 sessions because everyone is so darn different.
Yeah.
But the first session we go through their health history and see where they are and where is it that they're trying to go.
Yeah.
And I explain what the coaching relationship is, and that what the program entails and all of that. If they decide, this is something that I really want to do, I give them a binder, and I tell them this is kind of your toolkit. And in it, depending on where it is that you want to go and where you're growing, I'm going to give you lots of different information, so that at the end of this, you've got your toolkit.
So it starts out being empty, or?
It starts out, with, it has 2 sheets in it, or 3 sheets in it.
Right.
And so the first sheet is basically just a letter saying, congratulations, you're making a commitment to yourself. And a lot of this work is going to take place out of the times that we meet. But be really proud of yourself for pausing automatic pilot and being here because you want to take really good care of yourself. And then it has it's a bulleted list of basically intentions to honor your body, and at the end of it they sign it.
Right.
And then between that first session that we meet and the next one, I have them keep a food journal, and I explain to them that it's what they're eating is not necessarily so important, but I have them also note emotionally how you're feeling, physically, scale of 0 to 5, are you starving, are you not hungry at all, are you really full?
Yeah.
And then kind of what's going on in your day, and it's set up to get them to start to think mindfully throughout their day. And every time you sit down to eat is a great time to just kind of pause and be like, okay, how am I feeling?
Yeah.
So that's what they do between the first time that we meet and the second time that we meet.
And then what happens?
And then the second session we do a visioning exercise, where I lead them through a breathing exercise that culminates in the prompt that I typically use is, imagine it's a year from today and we've been working together, and we haven't seen each other for a few months, and bump into you on the street and you've been taking really good care of yourself, physically, mentally, emotionally, and guide them through, what do you see? What does that look like? What does it feel like to be that person? And I have them really live it. With my whole mind-body exercise training, experiencing things in your body is really, really powerful.
So when you do that exercise, are they sitting with their eyes closed and telling you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we would have done a breathing exercise, and then they would stay with their eyes closed, and then I would guide them to, as soon as they feel ready to share, and they can open their eyes and share, or keep their eyes closed, whatever they feel more comfortable with.
So the breathing exercise, you also do it?
No, because I'm talking.
Right, okay. And then what happens after the visioning exercise?
So then we have I take notes, and we have a vague sort of outcome goal and depending on who it is, sometimes it's all about feeling at ease in your own body. Sometimes it's about, I've finally started that company that I want to start, and people will come in thinking I just want to lose weight, and then what they come up with is totally off the wall in some other realm.
Right.
So whatever comes up from that, then we have, you know, this meat to work with.
Yeah.
And from there we break down into, I explain, okay, this is really vague outcome goal. This is awesome. I want you to remember what this feels like, and this is possible. So from that, they create a vision statement that encapsulates that, and it's typically either 1 to 2 sentences about when you look at that vision statement, it creates that energetic sensation, that excitement in your body. And then from there we break it down into, okay, well, how are we concretely going to get there? So in 6 months, where would you like to be concretely? Whether it's exercising 4 to 5 times a week, and you know, I've posted my resume at 2 new positions, or whatever it is. 3 months, 1 month, and then we set weekly goals.
Right. So, and the weekly goals you set, is that for the whole process or for the beginning of the process?
Just each session we set a new set of weekly goals.
Right. And you sometimes revise the right.
Big time. Big time, because my coaching, it's very much both wanting to share information, but only moving at the pace that they're ready for. But a lot of people, I think that what positive psychology has to offer wellness coaching is when you can see where somebody is and offer them, not say you should do this, but together, let's try a mindfulness meditation. How did you feel about that? Is that something you might want to try and incorporate in your week, in your day, in your so it's a combination of seeing where they are, what's important to them, what is it that they want to move forward with, and then how can I support them in that.
Right.
And I say right off the bat, you know, my goals are to move you forward, except for there's one thing I'll be really transparent about. I want you to be more mindful.
Right.
And to just be aware of what's going on in your life. From, you know, a moment to moment basis, because until we know what's going on and what we want and how we are in the moment, we can't start to make change.
Right.
So.
Okay. And then what happens after you set the goals? So
after we set the goals, then depending on what their goals are, it takes any various form. So I guess from there, what's very typical is that when they come in, I'll ask what was one really good thing that happened between now and the last time that we met. And we'll typically do a breathing exercise every time that we meet. And then depending on who it is, how their goals went, what way they're moving, it's so varied.
Right.
And I have my computer with me there and my printer, and so I have a number of different handouts. So I might have a general idea, like, oh, this person, I think it would be really useful to talk about positivity. You know, my really stressed out lawyer types that don't give themselves the freedom to just enjoy leisure, explaining why it's important and what it does to your brain. And I love explaining the doctor story, where giving them a little bag of candy and how that can completely change the way your brain is functioning and what you're seeing. So I might print off something about positivity and give them that. Somebody that comes in and is just really struggling, I might give them, I have a Rumi poem that talks about welcoming the sadness and the sorrows, and we'll sit with it. And you know what, this is the human condition. It hasn't changed for millennia. They were writing about it then. You're not alone. You're not crazy. So it's so varied. Right.
So you take notes in hand and then you print out from the computer, or do you write notes on the computer? I have client notes. I typically don't take notes till they leave. So I'll note, okay, you know, wow, she's really struggling with, you know, a lot of, especially for females, it's these self-critical thoughts that create a downward spiral. Maybe it's went on a date and it went really poorly. You know, I'll take notes about what we talked about, what happened, and what handout I gave them. But I do that after they leave. Okay. And how do you end coaching engagements?
I typically end asking them for my own learning. what was the most valuable thing that we talked about today? Or what's one thing that you're going to take away? And that question has been so revealing, because when I first started coaching, I always thought it would be like some really important fact that I shared, or some goal that they set that they're really excited about. And typically it's, what's most important is that you make me feel normal, and I feel like I can keep going.
Right.
So.
And when you've had people for half a year, how do you end it there?
And the coaching
engagement.
Typically the people that end, it's, let's kind of celebrate, let's talk about everything that changed. I also, at 3 months, we do a halfway revisit. So where are you? What have you accomplished? You know, what is it that you are still looking to change? And then at the end of 6 months, a similar thing. So
right.
Let's look at how far you've come.
Yeah.
Let's celebrate. So.
Right. And there's one other thing I wrote down that I'd like to ask you about. You said something about role modeling. Mm-hmm. Can you say something about that?
Yeah, I would say 50% of coaching is role modeling, and the other 50% is, well, I guess they go together, role modeling and the relationship. And for a client to be able to see me as a human being who also struggles with these things and has insecurities and makes mistakes, yet who can continue to grow and learn and make space for that. I think what's really beautiful about coaching is that you are able to share a little bit, and that allows people the safety to really share.
Right.
And I know, you know, as a yoga instructor, people will look at me and be like, oh, her life is perfect, she's got it all together. And for me to be able to say, you know what, there are days where I am not feeling it either, you know, I think is really healing and motivating.
So how does it come across to them? How do they see you as a role model? How do they know these things? Do you tell them like this example?
Yeah, I will share. Even on my website, like if somebody were to check out my bio, it talks about the journey that I went through. So being really anxious and having irritable bowel syndrome, and then through really figuring out what was important to me and valuing peace of mind and meditating and starting yoga and all of these things, my life transforming. Right. And so to be able to say, yeah, there are days I wake up and I am so anxious, it's there, but I have these tools that I can use, and I can allow it to be. I think is one way I role model. Say, I'm with you. I know how hard this is. Yeah. And here's what I've done. Right. And that this is a commitment that you make every single day. Yeah. And when you work with people, do you use, you mentioned a questionnaire that you send them, do you use other types of assessments? I really don't use, I've used that's not true, the VIA, and had people, you know, take that to talk about their strengths, and I haven't found it very effective. I don't know why that is, but I've found that people feel like it's homework that takes a long time. Right. And so I don't use many assessments. Right. Do you use homework? Homework would be the goals that they set, I suppose. But I make it really clear. I want to set goals that you're excited about moving forward with. Right. So a goal might be just to research yoga studios in their neighborhood. Yeah. If they're not ready to start yoga, but it is something that they eventually want to do. I'd say the most homework would be setting goals around meditation. So at noon my alarm's going to go off and I'm going to do a 5-minute mindfulness meditation at work. I'm going to close the door, and I'm really going to commit to doing it on Tuesday and Thursday. Yeah. And then the other thing that I'll have them do is call to mind moments where you call yourself back to the present so that you can share them with me the next time that we meet. Right. So but there's no homework. It's the goals that they set for themselves.
Right. What about positive interventions?
Positive interventions, the ones that I use the most would be constructing a beautiful day. Most of them I think are from Barbara Fredrickson's work. Loving kindness meditation, the 3 gratitudes, being, again, mindfulness, being open. I'll often have people for their morning walk to work, because most people are walking to the subway and then getting to work, to really try and just observe their physical environment and take it in.
Yeah.
Oh, the wind. Look at all these faces on the subway.
Yeah.
So let me think, what other positive interventions? I use writing.
Writing what?
Oh, writing. It's I call it morning pages, but it's really about just free writing, sitting down and writing.
Right.
I am awake and then you go.
Okay. Yeah.
And that is very, very effective for the clients that cling to it. It's like a new life-saving tool. For other people, they might try and they're like, yeah, it's not for me, and that's cool too.
Right.
What are the other ones that? I have people create a list of things that they want to do in their life, and it's a little, it could be similar to best self, but it's not in that. It's just, what are great ideas of things that you would love to do? So whether that's go to the opera, or go to Tahiti, or try a new dance class, or whatever it is, create this list. And it is so motivating to look at that list. I don't know if that is a technical positive intervention, but it's one that I've created that is really motivating. Savoring, absolutely. I typically will do an eating exercise with clients where they eat a strawberry very slowly. We talk about savoring. What is it? What does it look like to slow down and savor your life?
Yeah.
If you consider exercise a positive intervention, people start exercising. That question's actually really hard for me, because what is and what isn't a positive intervention? The ones that I know are, really empirically proven, or 3 gratitudes. Using a new strength in a new way. So
I have several questions. So these interventions, do you do them together with people? Like, do you buy the strawberry and then you do it in the session together with them?
Mm-hmm.
And what about the mindful walking?
So mindfulness will learn how to do it together in the session, and then they'll do it on their own as they're, going to work, or they'll pick a time during the day. Maybe their shower.
Right.
Maybe when they're doing the dishes.
Yeah.
Maybe often people's goals involve also their physical environment. So I want to have a lovely home where I feel good and cozy and warm, and so organizing, doing that really mindfully.
Yeah. And so how do you pick the ones that you do together and the ones you don't?
Something like, we'll always talk about what they are together, but something like free writing, they'll do on their own.
Right.
Something like a mindfulness walk, they'll do on their own. The ones that we'll do together are breathing meditations, an eating meditation.
Yeah.
Just talking about what are you grateful for, what are you proud of, what are you excited about, and then sharing that as a way to interact with their loved ones. When so-and-so comes home, ask them, what are you proud of? What are you grateful for? What are you excited about? So
the 3 good things you do, the 3 gratitudes, do you do that in the session also, or do you send them home with that?
That I would send them home with.
Okay.
And just that one would be something that I'd say, hey, this is something, because we talk about positivity, why it's important, and then I explain we can do things in our day to pull that positivity lever. So we can't just say be happy, but we can set up an environment where our heartstrings are kind of pulled, and here's one tool that you might want to try using.
Okay.
And so, for example, going into their binder, it would literally say, positivity tool.
Right.
The 3 gratitudes.
Yeah.
And so they can take that, and some people go with it and run. Some people, it sits in their binder, they don't use it. Right. And that's cool.
Right. And how do they use their binder? Do you know? Have they told you?
It really varies. I've had some people that bring it to every session. I've had one client who said couldn't sleep, so I just got up and was reading my binder, and that was really really heartwarming for her. Then I have clients who I'm sure it probably sits on their desk and they don't look at it. Right. I don't know. Right. But I know some people bring it and have it, and others don't. Right.
And you mentioned before that you had created a positive intervention, or whether to call it that or not. But have you created other interventions, other ways of doing things? Are there exercises?
Yeah. After they create their vision statement, it is the first thing that they look at when they wake up in the morning. So I used to check my email the first thing I woke up in the morning. It's like, okay, world slapped me across the face, and you're trying to catch up all day long. Yeah. So to have it written down, and whether it's on your bedside table or on your bathroom mirror, have that be the first thing that you see, and say it to yourself in the morning, is something that I use.
Right.
What are others that I possibly created? Well, one thing that positive psychology doesn't go into so much is just when I know, when negative stuff does come up, what do you do? Yeah. And mindfulness gets at that, but really allowing that to be, and not trying to push it away, and not telling stories about it. I use this story of in the Buddhist tradition, Mara being that negative energy, and inviting Mara to tea. So just allowing it to be, and then looking up and saying, okay, and now what? That is something that has been so effective for people to know that it's not human to feel happy and running through rose fields all day long. That's part of the human condition. So I guess the term compassion is something that comes up often in my coaching.
Can you say something more about the compassion thing, and also the Mara?
Mara.
Yeah.
So Mara is a destructive energy, right, that we all have, whether it's anger, jealousy, fear, insecurity, doubt. And when those emotions come up, to be able to sit with them and not try and beat them away, like I shouldn't be feeling this, what's wrong with me, I shouldn't be feeling it, and also not to latch onto it. I am this anxious person, or I am a failure, but to just, okay, there it is, sit with it, breathe with it, and to think about inviting it to tea, like you invite. There's I don't know where exactly it is written, but I read a story about the Buddha kind of inviting these destructive energies to tea, to just be there.
Right. It sounds like externalizing it into something that you don't identify with.
Exactly. Yeah, I'll even explain it as, it's kind of like as soon as you name it and you invite it here, you've got space around it.
Right.
So a kind of a cute story I use is there's a movie, What Women Want, where Mel Gibson is thinking like a woman for a day, and you can hear his thoughts. And this woman breaks up with him, and he goes into his house, and he's just all upset, and he opens the refrigerator, and he goes, what am I doing? She's not in there, and closes it. And I have many clients that weight loss is their goal, and yet they're compulsively snacking, or they're, eating sweets in the middle of the night, or whatever it might be. And to be able to just name that, like, okay, there's Mara.
Yeah.
It doesn't define me, and as soon as you can name it, you've got a little bit of space around it.
Right.
And you keep naming it, and you keep naming it, and sometimes it's going to take you and run.
Yeah.
But there's going to be times when it comes, and you name it, and you sit with it, and you breathe, and you think, well, what's really going to nourish me?
Yeah. And the compassion thing?
And so the compassion goes right into that. And actually, this is what I'm hoping to focus my thesis on.
Right.
Kristen Neff is at the University of Texas at Austin, and she conceptualizes self-compassion as encapsulating kind of 3 core components. The first being mindfulness. So first, be aware if you're suffering. So many people are running around so darn fast, they're not aware of it.
Yeah.
So just being mindful. The second is shared humanity. That's the human experience.
Yeah.
It is what it is. We're all in the same boat together, which is just so freeing. Which is what I think many of my clients express at the end of a session. It's like, just make me feel normal.
Right.
So then once you know it's a shared humanity, you don't over-identify with it. It's kind of, you get that space.
Yeah.
And then the third component would be self-kindness. So self-compassion.
Yeah.
Which is, how would you treat yourself if you were talking to a really good friend?
Yeah.
Which it's not about, oh, go hang out on the couch and don't do anything all day. It's, you know what would really make you feel better is to go for a walk.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't need to go for the 5-mile run, but get outside and go for a walk.
Yeah.
Or whatever it might be.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier something about sharing knowledge and the right timing and stuff like that. Can you say something more about knowledge sharing?
I've found many of my clients are very intellectual. I don't know, New York City, there's a lot of, and most of my clients are lawyers or in finance or doctors, and they want to know. It's really powerful to share, you're doing this because it's changing your brain in this way. You're breathing because it's changing your nervous system response in this way. So at least with my clientele, sharing why they're doing something is really important.
Right.
And then with handouts, if they really are interested in something, I'll recommend a book, or you can learn more about this way, or depending on who they are.
Right. And so when do you share your knowledge?
I share my knowledge when it's that flexibility component you were talking about, when they want to know.
And how do you know
when
that?
It's something that I think it's something that either you have it or you don't. I think either you have social intelligence and you can relate to people and you see where they are and when it's appropriate, or you don't, because going in with a cookie cutter approach just wouldn't work. So I'm sorry, I don't know if that's not helpful.
Yeah. And so how do you share it? When you want to share something, how do you do it?
Let me think of an example. Often I'll ask, can I share some research? And I'll say, can I share some research on positive psychology that has to do with what you're talking about? Or they'll be talking about something and I'll say, something I think you would find really useful.
Right.
Or here's some language that maybe you're not, giving people language is also really, really powerful. So they'll be talking about something and I'll say, oh, Roy Baumeister has been talking about this as willpower, and here's da-da-da-da-da-da. So to be able to talk about, wow, at the end of the day, I don't have any willpower left because it's fatigued like a muscle. Just to give people language is often when I'll share information too.
Right. And you mentioned flexibility?
Yeah.
So can you say something more about that?
I think what moves people forward is being seen and being heard, and then me being able to ask the right question at the right time, and also be able to give them new tools that they haven't been exposed to. And that's all very particular to the person.
Yeah.
So often I'll have, depending on how our last session went, I might have a general idea about some facet from positive psychology that might be useful, or I might have an idea about, okay, this is the session where I'm really going to introduce mindfulness. Depending on what they bring to that session, it could go out the window, and we're dealing with whatever they've presented.
Right. I'll just take a few more questions and then we can take. You mentioned the feeling seen and heard, and I wanted to ask you a question about the reliance, so alliance, the relationship. And so how do you make them feel seen and heard? How do you create a good relationship with them?
Well, I mean, empathy. So whatever it is that they bring in, letting them know, I understand where you are, and I'm here for you. This is a safe space for you to be able to share that. And then asking open-ended questions in a way that lets them know that I'm listening.
Yeah.
Right? I think a lot of people are never listened to during their day. Everyone's got their own mental tapes going on. Empathy, and then asking questions that let them know I'm curious, because I really do. I absolutely care about their well-being, and I want them to move forward. So, and then absolutely just being present to them, to giving my whole self for that hour that we're together.
And other things you do to create a good relationship?
Sharing examples, either from my own life or from a client, who their situation they might find motivating, or might find some understanding. So I think letting them know you're so normal, you're so human, these struggles or these obstacles, and here are ways that client X has worked around this, or here's what I've done in my own life, and brainstorming with them, and then bringing them back to what is it that you really do want, and let's look at how you have been successful and in other areas of your life that you've been successful, so then really building back up their sense of I can do this, and letting them know that I really believe that they can do it too.
Yeah. And what about the expectations that, so how do you create positive expectations like that?
Positive expectations.
Yeah, so the expectations that people have might influence the outcome. So what do you do to create some expectations that will kind of help them towards the outcome that they want?
One quote that I often will use is from Carl Jung, saying that a problem in and of itself is not solved by focusing on the problem, but eclipsed by a greater vision of what could be. And so always coming back to what is it that you really do want creates a positive expectation.
Right. And do you do something special to create credibility for you, or positive psychology, or coaching?
You mean like tell them what my credentials are, or?
Could be anything.
I suppose not. I mean, most people come by word of mouth, and they can check out my website, which has, all about me on it. But I found that most people, surprisingly, don't care. It's all about the relationship.
Yeah.
And in the relationship is where growth happens. And then the goal is that they continue to be able to grow after those 6 months on their own, having had that foundation.
So can you say something more about that? So the relationship will help them grow, but once they don't have the relationship anymore, what then?
Either hopefully we all need help, right? Like, I couldn't be happy and healthy every day if I wasn't going to yoga class, where I got to see this community of people that really inspired me towards my best self, or got to go to MAP and talk to these individuals that are amazing. So at the end of our coaching, if they decide that they don't want to keep, if they want to keep going, great. And if they decide that they don't, my hope would be that they have a community of people that are going to keep them moving forward.
Right. And other things I have a question about client engagement. So what things can help them stay engaged in the process? So the community of people, other things that can help the client stay engaged at working towards their goals when you're not seeing them?
I think setting concrete goals is really, really important.
Yeah.
Engagement.
So how do we make sure that they move?
The goals. I mean, that's how you see it. And then each time we talk about, okay, so what's changed since the last time that we met? I had a client yesterday just say, and sometimes it's tricky because a lot of times it's just a different way of being in the world, and that can be hard to measure.
Yeah. But
they come in and say, wow, I feel lighter and more at peace than I did when we started 6 months ago.
Yeah.
But in terms of engagement, just encouraging them that they can create the life they want for themselves, and that we all need to put in structural support to stay on that path.
Yeah. And what could that be?
So that could be if you're creative, joining a knitting club.
Yeah, yeah.
If you don't like exercising, joining a running club. If you haven't been making time for friends and family, really being specific about, okay, Saturday night I get together with a friend.
Yeah. I
call a friend. That's just as important as getting my work done.
So what do your clients normally say is most helpful to them?
I think, what's so beautiful about coaching is by the time somebody's in my office, they want to change.
Yeah.
And so just having a forum to talk about, okay, what is it that I do want, I think is probably the most helpful thing.
Yeah.
To get clear about it and to then make it concrete.
Yeah.
And start to set goals and move forward.
Yeah.
So I think accountability is probably the most helpful.
Right. What else? What else do they say?
Is most helpful?
Yeah, so when you ask them, you said the normalizing thing, but other things that they mention?
It varies from person to person and session to session. Some people find, I have one client who thinks morning pages is the most amazing thing since sliced bread. I have another client who absolutely has found so much freedom from learning about mindfulness that she was crying the other day.
Right.
I have one client who starting to exercise has made her feel so much better. So that's hard to say.
Right.
But I think again, it's just a space where they come together in relationship with somebody to focus on what it is they do want, to pause the automatic pilot and make time for creating the life that they want for themselves.
Yeah.
And everyone is just so different.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
And how do you know that they're progressing? Like, how can you tell?
Because they either come to the session having made progress and achieved their goals, or they haven't. Or they're either feeling better about their way of life, or they're not.
So do they tell you, or do you ask, or?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what it all is, right? The first question is, what's one really good thing that happened since the last time we met, and whether that was a goal being accomplished, or whether that was just feeling freer in their bodies, or looking at their lives a different way, or saying, wow, I would have reacted in this situation and I was really calm, or my sleeping is getting better. I mean, it would be pretty hard not to know if they were progressing or not progressing. Right. It's not a secret.
And then, so what do you think causes the changes that you're seeing when they progress?
That's a really good question. I think it is a combination of, one, them wanting to change, them thinking they can change, them knowing that there's going to be ups and downs along the way, but that they have this coaching relationship to come back to over and over and over again, and they keep showing up for themselves over and over and over again. I think it's just like creating any kind of change in your life. It's deciding what it is, committing to it, and then coming back to it over and over and over again.
Right. And other things that might help cause the change?
Having, I mean, you can think of the coaching relationship as an infrastructure that's building a new way of life. Yeah. So that the coaching relationship and that infrastructure. And also I think the self-compassion component. So when you do fail, instead of beating yourself up and going into a downward spiral and then going on another, juice cleanse or going on another kind of exercise binge for a while and then falling off the bandwagon and beating yourself up again and spiraling downward, it's, oh, okay, actually I'm human. Yeah. It's okay. And what's going to serve me?
So how do you develop as a professional?
Going to MAP was one component of it, and I just want to learn everything. I would love to go on a nonviolent communication retreat. I'd love to go on a mindfulness retreat. I would love to, there's some different sort of mind-body modalities that I want to learn. And I would love to just continue to advance in whether it's through coaching certifications or mind-body sorts of certifications.
Right.
And I'm just darn curious.
Yeah. And when you learn something new, how do you integrate it in the way that you coach?
When I learn something like a theory or
model, whatever.
It's kind of like I have something in my back pocket, and depending on where a client is, I can share that language with them. So that's how I share.
And how do you produce material for your binder?
I will sit down and write a handout, or it might even be like an excerpt from like Barbara Fredrickson's book. I would share, or I would take a tool and just cite it at the bottom from Positivity by Barbara Fredrickson. So if it's something like that, or if it's something about the nervous system, I know a lot about the nervous system, so I'll write my own nervous system kind of little diagram that they can look at. And I enjoy creating those because it reinforces the learning for me to be able to talk about it.
Yeah. And would you say that positive psychology coaching is different from other types of coaching? Like if you didn't know about positive psychology, would you be working the same way or a different way?
Again, that's hard for me to answer just because the coaching certification that I did incorporated it as kind of one of the pillars.
Yeah.
And I don't know a lot about executive coaching or other forms of coaching. But I mean, what does differentiate coaching from therapy is that it is future oriented. So I think you can't really get away from positive psychology if you're doing coaching.
Right.
I think though that calling yourself a positive psychology coach can give understanding to what coaching is. If somebody is familiar with positive psychology, or just to differentiate it from the therapeutic approach. So yeah, I don't know, I can't imagine coaching without positive psychology. I don't. Mm-hmm. It's yeah.
And what do you call yourself?
I call myself a nutrition and wellness coach.
Right. And your thoughts on that? Like, why have you chosen that title?
I chose that title, well, because my first certification was in nutrition, and then the wellness coaching was the title of, the certification that I did was wellness coaching.
Right.
And I just put them together.
Right.
I think, I probably could drop the nutrition part because it's really just wellness and nutrition is a part of that.
Yeah.
But a lot of people do want to change the way that they're eating. So.
Right. Are there things that we have not been talking about that are important to understand, to kind of understand the way that you work?
Perhaps that Some of my clients I do yoga and wellness coaching with, so using the body as a way to generate positive emotion, generate feelings of mastery, generate motivation, is something that is a really beautiful symbiotic relationship.
Yeah.
And has been really effective with some of my obese clients.
Right. So that's individual yoga, one-to-one.
Yeah.
And the same place in your office or?
No, with those individuals I see them in their homes.
Right.
If I do private yoga or private core fusion, that's in their home.
Right. And other things that we've not been talking about that are important?
I suppose just honestly caring about each and every client is the most important thing.
Yeah.
People can feel when you authentically care about them and when you don't.
Yeah.
And I've had a few clients that have been in therapy for a long time and started coaching and have said things to me that just really surprises me. Like, well, I wouldn't have ever told my therapist this. I'm like, what? Like, you know? So I don't know if it's just that something that I see that I've spoken about with a few of my colleagues at MAP who are therapists is you're not allowed to share any sort of personal experience. And I think for at least a few of my clients that kind of sets up that breaks down the warmth of the relationship that it could be to inspire growth. Yeah. And I just don't know if someone can achieve their maximum, they can flourish and they don't feel like they can absolutely be completely open.
Yeah. Other things we've not talked about?
One sort of model that I give clients to think about as wellness, what wellness coaching is sort of, if you think of a pyramid, we're starting bottom up. So eating better, exercising, breathing, you start to feel better, your energy shifts, what you think is possible changes, and that leads you to all kinds of change leading to your best self. But it's inspired top down. So who are you at your best? What are your deeply held values? What does that look like? What does that feel like? And knowing that, that's kind of that vision that we start with, that starts to inspire all these other changes.
Right.
Because changing how you're eating is hard. Starting exercising is hard. Sitting there and meditate is hard. Being mindful is hard.
Yeah.
All of these things. Getting to bed earlier is hard.
So is that a handout or is that the pyramid?
I actually haven't made a handout for that. I probably should. Okay. That's just something that I explain.
Right. And what advice would you give to other people who would like to start applying some things from positive psychology in coaching?
I think that doing mindfulness exercises with clients in a session is really important. I think the visioning exercise that I do is really, really powerful. I would encourage doing that together. Setting concrete goals is very important. I know that's not unique to positive psychology, but that's what I recommend people incorporating positive psychology. Because knowing the material well and being excited about it and sharing it because you're excited about it, that's what gets people to change. When you really believe in what you've learned, how you're apply it to your own life.
Yeah.
You have to live it to be able to model it.
Yeah.
And if you're faking it,
right,
people can totally tell.
Yeah,
so you have to live it.
Yeah.
You have to be being mindful yourself and leaning into positive emotion and constructing a beautiful day and doing all of those things for yourself, because if you're not doing it and it's not real, they can tell.
Yeah. What would you like to know about other people? So I'm interviewing other people also are there things that you would like for me to ask them, like information that you could benefit from?
Yeah. I guess because I don't use many assessments, what assessments they think are useful and are time efficient.
Yeah.
Because the last thing I want to do is tell somebody, go spend 30 minutes, doing this if they don't have time.
Right.
Yeah, so useful assessments. Many of the questions that you asked me, what has been most valuable for your clients?
Yeah.
What seems to really motivate change? I guess that would be it, yeah.
Yep. Any last things on your mind?
To be a good coach, you have to take good care of yourself. So if you're depleted, you can't fully be present to clients. And if you're not continuing to learn and the information is getting stale or boring, you're not going to be a very good coach.
No.
So I think, for me at least, continuing to learn, whether it's, about the body or whether it's about a new theory or whether it's about, I don't know, something. I speaking for myself, I just have to keep learning to keep it
real.
Right.